windup, the pitch. Let's hear some chowder. A swing. Sliced it. 0-2.
I'm playing a game from my childhood. And I mean far back into my childhood.
The stretch. She delivers. A swing. And belts it. Ooh. Move over, Sputnik. This puppy's headed for orbit. The pitcher just turned to watch it go out of the
Man,
park.
and this game came out in 1997. Makes me feel nostalgic. Nostalgic. Well, we do describe nostalgia as a sense of reminiscing on the past, and some people say that life was easier back when they were young. But what exactly is nostalgia? And why do we feel so strongly about it? Nostalgia is often described as feelings of sentimental longing or affection of the past. These feelings are often about comforting ourselves in anxious or difficult times. Different things will be nostalgic. Examples include this, or even this may be nostalgic. And it's not something that's been entirely ignored by pop culture. Shows, movies, and games have delved into many of our childhoods and our collective pasts. Whether it's by making sequels to movies from back in the 80s,
Is this a figment of your imagination?
or developing games set in a childhood-based establishment. Oftentimes to scare the pants off of us.
Jesus. Okay, so the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through. What the
But why exactly do we feel nostalgic?
Okay, so I will first say that I 5 minutes ago pulled up your email to remember what you were doing research on. I saw the word nostalgia.
Looking for a different perspective on nostalgia and understand the psychology behind it, I spoke to Laura Thomas, lecturer at CW Sammamish.
But I will tell you that I teach a 101, like general psychology class. The other class I teach is psychology of adjustment. And the third class I teach is psychology of video games. The word nostalgia comes up a lot in video games, because if you think about the video games you like to play, a lot of them go back to what you played when you were a kid.
Nostalgia in video games? This I had to learn more about. For that, I was led to Joshua Buchanan, lecturer at CWU, and the one who helped bring psychology of video games to the university.
As someone who regularly plays video games, I've noticed there have been a lot of video games released in the last decade or so especially that are remakes or reboots or complete reimaginings of video games from 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And they are some of the more popular games that have been released. So there's definitely a market for people my age or within my age demographic of people who grew up playing video games, and now those video games that we feel nostalgic about are being marketed to people who have the money to be able to purchase those games and have the ability to play those games. So,
But of course, not all nostalgia is seen in a positive light.
the origins of nostalgia were from soldiers at war, them thinking while they're on the front lines of home and then feeling immense sadness and depression because they knew they couldn't get back home. And a lot of the soldiers and commanding officers were worried that this was going to make soldiers less effective, they weren't going to want to fight, and nostalgia was seen as this kind of illness almost.
Today, this can be identified by an unofficially recognized diagnosis, known as nostalgic depression.
The conceptualization that we have now, at least within psychology, is a much more positive version of nostalgia. But that being said, nostalgia does have the capacity to lead people down a kind of negative thought spiral and negative emotional spiral.
Thinking about a lot of research, we hold on to negative memories more than we do positive. Because we hold on to the negative things, we need to have those positive memories.
And that is not always available for people. Environmental factors that foster that kind of thought are when people focus too much on the fact that they can't return to those situations.
The final question that I asked was, how can we move forward with our lives with nostalgia, both positive and negative?
One of my favorite research studies, a guy who did studies on hope and how important hope is for us. And there's this whole 5-1 rule, if you haven't heard it before, but for every one bad thing that happens to you in a day, you have to do 5 good things to make up for it.
In psychology, there hasn't been a whole lot of research on nostalgia. Nostalgia, as it exists within psychology, would be this kind of wistful or longing of something good that's happened in the past.
I would say with therapy in mind that there's been a lot of things that have come out where with like CBT, a lot of times some of the homework would be, okay, let's go back to your childhood. Let's look at nostalgia, for instance, and then come up with some solutions of how you could apply that to your life now. When I think of nostalgia, you're kind of wanting to replicate it. And that's the way that I see nostalgia. And that's the way that it could be portrayed.
Exactly.
I don't even remember your question now. I'm so sorry.